Hi, my name is Deepak Malhotra and I'm a professor of negotiations at Harvard Business School. I'm also the author of the book Negotiating the Impossible and co-author of the book Negotiation Genius. In this series of videos, I'm talking about the topic of negotiation. And in each clip, I talk about one key idea, an insight, a tip, an approach, a tactic, or a principle that hopefully will help you as you navigate your own deals and disputes. Here, I want to talk about one of the first things I do when I'm advising on a deal. When a client brings me in or a student walks into my office and we're talking about a complex negotiation, a difficult negotiation, usually one of the first things I'm going to do is clear up a whiteboard and draw out the negotiation space. Now, what's the negotiation space? It's just my term for all the parties that are relevant to this negotiation. Before we start talking about what we're going to do in this negotiation, what we're going to say, what we're going to aim for, how we're going to make our arguments, what kind of information we need, how we're going to frame things, any of that, before we get into any of those discussions, anything on the substance of the negotiation, the first thing I'll always ask my client to do is help me draw out the negotiation space. So we'll take a whiteboard and we'll literally map out all of the parties that are relevant to the negotiation. And by relevant, I mean one of two things. Who are all the parties that can somehow influence the negotiation or are somehow influenced by the negotiation? I want to keep my eye on every one of those parties. Anyone who can influence the deal or dispute or is influenced by the deal or dispute needs to be on our radar. And we'll map them out because as we think about our negotiation strategy, we want to take into account all of these parties' interests, constraints, alternatives, and perspectives. A lot of the action that takes place in the negotiation and the margin of success and failure often isn't determined by what happens when you walk into the room and the other side is sitting across from you. A lot of what your strategy depends on and success and failure depends on is how well you took into account the actions and the perspectives and the moves that parties that are not even in the room might make as a consequence of this negotiation taking place. When you make sure that your strategy is robust to the interests, constraints, alternatives, and perspectives of all the parties, not just the people that will be in the room, you make it much more likely that you actually achieve your objectives. Very often, what seemed like a great idea when looking narrowly at the negotiation table, looking narrowly at the set of parties that are clearly relevant to the negotiation, too often when we broadened our scope, we discovered that that strategy perhaps would not be wise, would not be ideal, given all of these other parties and the perspectives and the interests that they have in the negotiation. So when you zoom out and you broaden your scope, when you look at the negotiation space in its entirety, you're much more likely to come up with a strategy that's going to be more effective. Good luck.